doing well too.
I love the call out that these are two people that are known within the community, even if they're not maybe known as much on the broadcast end of things. Yotam has been featured a couple of times, but on the other end, Geo has not. But Yotam's name has been brought up a lot when you're talking about those team building groups or people that have been consistently getting these results, crediting him for the prep and the work that he's done. And Geo has been hailed as someone that is kind of just always there and always really strong, but never really gets to showcase it on these broadcasts. This is only just a snapshot of our competition. So to highlight him as well as this team is really cool, especially since this Koraidon team is one that he's been running for a bit.
Yeah, the first time Reg G came around, he was using this at some of our Dallas locals, and I know we took it to the World Championships last year as well and made it to day 2 with this pretty much the same exact team. We were checking some of the results in the team sheets we got here and couldn't find any differences, so really cool to see some continued success from Geo. And I know he got top 8 at the very, very first Scarlet and Violet Regional back in San Diego a few years ago and hasn't made top cut at a regional since then after a few day 2s. So hoping to win this one last match and jump into that single elimination stage on the back of this team with Raging Bolt, Fluttermane, Ditto, Ogerpon, Cornerstone Mask, Koraidon, and Chi-Yu.
And don't be confused, this is not the Koraidon that we got to see at EUIC, but this is more of the original Koraidon version that some people were trying out with this clear amulet. A way to make sure that your attack is not dropped. And the rest of the team too, being able to have some very powerful options set up by the Sun. The Raging Bolt, the Fluttermane, both taking a lot of advantage of the situation, and the Chi-Yu can put a lot of pressure out. So a team that he has been loyal to since the beginning of the format. So even if Koraidon hasn't made the most of splashes and only kind of has that 1 or 2 result, just silently lurking in the background, just waiting for its moment to literally shine.
This is also a testament to consistency and team choices too. If you've used a team this long, you probably know how it functions very, very well and how you might have to play it into a team like Yotam's, which is using the Calyrex Shadow Rider that we've seen throughout the weekend. But this is a Terra Dark Shadow Rider, so it's cool that we've got to see, I think, 3 or 4 different Terra types just in that one Pokemon all week.
Yeah, the Calyrex Shadow Rider, I mean, I feel like you can do any terrestrialization at this point.
Yeah.
Not quite, that's a joke, that's a joke. But so many different forms and adaptations to the current meta that we have. Looking at the rest of the teams, this is that Calyrex Shadow Rider, so there is not going to be a way to override the weather, which is something that can maybe be a little bit problematic. But a couple of these Pokemon can take advantage of that weather mode still. You have that Fluttermane that, with or without the Sun, can do quite well with that booster energy, and the Chi-Yu can definitely take advantage. I'm eyeing up the Fluttermane set here specifically. The 2 different ways of speed control with that Icy Wind and the Thunder Wave.
Icy Wind, kind of the more traditional option for Fluttermane, especially since it is so fast and has a decent special attack stat. It can make use of some chip damage with that Icy Wind. But Icy Wind does not help against Pokemon holding the Clear Amulet item like Geo's Koraidon. So Thunder Wave is another great way to slow things down. It will be a nice way to make sure that Koraidon isn't going too fast, especially after a Flame Charge. It will be able to outspeed Calyrex Shadow Rider and do a huge chunk of damage to it with that Flare Blitz in the Sun. So a nice way to protect all of Yotam's Pokemon from that very speedy threat.
Yeah, I love that you have those 2 different options. So, okay, well, I'm facing off against an electric Pokemon. Okay, well, then I have this Icy Wind. Oh no, they got a Clear Amulet. I still got the Thunder Wave. I am so set. So I'm eyeing up this Fluttermane as something to make that impact, even just with something like a very powerful Moonblast into a couple of these different Pokemon can fare quite well. Of course, there is the redirection on the opposing end with that Ogerpon, and you only have that single target move because you need the coverage in the other sort of ways. But still, if you get the opportunity to fire off that attack, well, that can be huge.
It's going to be fun to see how Geo uses these parts of his team too. We got the Ditto on Geo's side that we saw do a lot of work for Joe Ugarte earlier on in the tournament yesterday. No Ditto just yet though. We have the Fluttermane mirror lead alongside the Calyrex Shadow Rider for Yotam and the Chi-Yu for Geo. Chi-Yu now kind of helping out every single Pokemon on the field with that Beads of Ruin ability, lowering the special defense for all these very powerful special attackers.
You're so kind, Chi-Yu. You're so kind. Looking at the booster energies, how this is going down. So Yotam got that booster energy first. Both of the Fluttermanes will be speed. Of course, as this match goes on, we'll be able to figure out if it's more of a speed tie situation or if it is just going to be naturally faster on Yotam's end. And that's something to really keep mindful too when both these Fluttermanes do have that speed control options. You don't want to be the slower one.
The Calyrex on Yotam's side is not holding that Covert Cloak item, so any Snarls that come through from this Chi-Yu will be very impactful. Of course, Snarl lowering the special attack of both Pokemon on the other side of the field and being able to kind of mitigate some of that damage while also taking advantage of that Beads of Ruin itself. I've seen Snarl, even though it's a lower base power move, one-hit KO Calyrex Shadow Riders before because it is double weak to that Dark type. So if Yotam wants that Calyrex to stick around, he might have to either Terastallize it or swap it out.
Eyeing up in this first match, you're not going to get a swap out, so this Calyrex Shadow Rider is sticking around. Terrestrialization, Fluttermane from Geo into the Fairy type. So this way, you're not going to be taking as much damage from the potential of an Astral Barrage onto the opposing end. Protect, though, no attack from Yotam. So if there is something like this Icy Wind, you're not going to be having that speed drop. Yotam's Fluttermane, again, the fastest one. So speed for Geo's Pokemon, both reduced going on forward.
The Chiyu actually holding a Covert Cloak, though, it might come in handy because there is no speed drop coming into that slot. Now that the two Icy Winds have been exchanged, the Fluttermanes are at -1 speed. I think the Calyrex probably going to end up being the fastest thing on the field next turn. Heat Wave does come through. Of course, the Calyrex, with their Protect, will not take any damage, but Fluttermane will take a decent chunk here.
Brings it down to just below half, so that's a little bit of good, honest damage. And now I'm eyeing up the Calyrex and the pressure they can put on. You got Terrestrialization out from Geo, so that's definitely a good little piece of info to take on forward, and it can help you adapt.
Chiyu, though, is still very healthy and notably does not lower its own special defense with the Beads of Ruin. So since it has a pretty decent base special defense stat, I don't think there's any way for it to get knocked out on this turn, save for some kind of critical hit coming through. So this is still a really strong spot for this Chiyu to be in. The Fairy Terrestrialization from Geo also removing the Astral Barrage weakness. And we see that there's kind of not really a great way for some huge damage to come out from Yotam on this turn. The Beads of Ruin might be an issue for your own Fluttermane there, so nice swap out.
And if you're looking at where this damage is coming from and eyeing up this Chiyu, well, the sunlight brought in by this Koraidon switch is going to help enable that. Astral Barrage is going to be first, though. Too surprised to see that coming out. The Chiyu, you had called out the mount, but Koraidon not standing up at all. Critical hit, Beads of Ruin, Koraidon restricted down. You get the sun up, and that's it.
Yeah, the sun goes up, but I don't know if that's going to be too much. That's a really unfortunate critical hit there. Depending on what this Fluttermane on Yotam's side would have done, maybe that Moonblast was headed there anyway, but instead into the Chiyu, which does not get knocked out in Overheat, should be able to knock out this Calyrex.
So at least you're traded restricted for a restricted Pokemon, but you've taken a lot of damage on your Chiyu at this point. This Fluttermane, well, outspeeds it, and you not have that special attack drop. So a switch in, at least a nice thing here is your Fluttermane is now going to be fastest since you are going up against a Fluttermane that has that speed drop.
Yeah.
So you can try and maybe drop that speed going on forward, but that's a lot of damage done for Geo.
It is. I mean, they kind of traded their restricted Pokemon on that turn, which I guess is, if you have to swap in the Koraidon to a critical hit Astral Barrage, at least you take out the Shadow Rider. You have to wonder if you give up too much momentum there. That Chiyu is now at very low HP and at -2 special attack. Does still have the benefit of the sun and the Beads of Ruin, so honestly still will be hitting for decent chunks, but is it going to be enough to kind of make up for this loss of HP? The Fluttermane swapped out, so it did lose its speed boost, but thanks to the sun going up, it actually gets it right back, like you kind of hinted at, Sierra, so should be faster than Yotam's Fluttermane still, which will be really important here because this Urshifu is going to come in, and that's going to be something you might want to hit with a Moonblast, maybe an Icy Wind.
Yeah, we don't like Urshifu too much around here, or, depending on who you ask. So a Moonblast, take that out would be nice, but then the Fluttermane definitely left a little susceptible on the other end, so you have to kind of just choose what to target. What is a little nice about this Urshifu is that within the sun, all of those water-type moves are going to be reduced, but when you are eyeing up a Chiyu that's already so low, that is something that can be picked off by a priority Aqua Jet.
It is, despite the fact that the sun is up, Chiyu is well within range of Aqua Jet. The Terra Fairy on Fluttermane, though, might allow Geo to knock out Yotam's Fluttermane before it can attack with a Moonblast, so that could be pretty handy. But if you're doing that, you're not breaking the Focus Sash on the Urshifu, which could come into play later on in this match, especially given we don't know Yotam's fourth Pokemon. But if Urshifu's Focus Sash is broken, it will be knocked out by a Power Whip from Geo's own Ogerpon, so maybe something to keep in mind.
Well, this Fluttermane wants absolutely nothing to do with it. So we get to see that fourth final Pokemon for Yotam, and it will be that Amoonguss. A swap out for Geo as well as Ogerpon hits the field. This is going to be the Cornerstone variant, so it does have that sturdy, but no attack coming out from Yotam. Instead, just the Protect. The Fluttermane targeting into the opposing slot instead. So Amoonguss swap still going to be better than the damage on the Urshifu or anything else. It's just going to be a little bit of honest chip.
That's a really nice turn for Geo, though, because now this Ogerpon came in without its sturdy being broken. You can pretty easily go for an Icy Wind to break the Focus Sash of the Urshifu, get a little bit of damage on Amoonguss, but importantly bypass Rage Powder to make sure Urshifu takes some damage. And then Ogerpon cannot be redirected by Rage Powder because it is a Grass type. So if you're able to connect that Power Whip, Urshifu should go down. The only thing Yotam can swap into that slot is Fluttermane, which would also be knocked out by Power Whip here. So a strong offensive spot for Geo to be in.
I think the key word of that entire sentence was if
Yeah.
Power Whip connects. Yeah, that's not the most accurate. You're giving up a little bit of that accuracy for that damage. Aqua Jet to just get a little bit of damage, break the sturdy before getting KO'd, knowing that this Icy Wind and the Smasher move was coming out. So connect with the Icy Wind on both of these targets. Now, all eyes on to this Ogre Pawn. This Power Whip connects, fantastic position, and it is coming through. Urshifu taken down, Yotam, final 2 Pokemon.
This is a pretty good spot for Geo here. This Amoonguss might be able to put the Flutter Mane to sleep or get some chip damage onto this Ogre Pawn again with the Sludge Bomb. No poison, it looks like, which is good for Geo. Okay, no poison indeed. So now Flutter Mane comes in for Yotam. This Ogre Pawn cannot be redirected by Amoonguss, but the Flutter Mane on Yotam's side, we've seen be faster than Geo's, and so as long as it's able to get an attack off, possibly a Moonblast into that Ogre Pawn slot, might be able to knock it out. It is not Terra Fairy though. The Flutter Mane on Yotam's side is the Terra Grass. So you kind of have to rely on this Moonblast being able to knock it out without any kind of boost. And given that it's a kind of a speedier variant that are often trained to be a little bit bulky at the same time, it might be a very close knockout.
I'm still very intrigued. You called out that we've seen the Flutter Mane from Yotam outspeed twice. You can still win a speed tie twice, so this is still up in the air, no confirmations, unless the players know a little something that we don't quite yet. But looking on this turn, that Geo going a little bit more on that defensive route.
True, Flutter Mane wanting to protect itself alongside this Ogre Pawn, kind of scout out what Yotam does. If the Flutter Mane had decided to protect this turn as you try to go for an Ivy Cudgel, Amoonguss can maybe get some Sludge Bomb damage into it, so you're making sure that you're not giving any extra damage up. I think one thing that Geo also could be doing here is trying to stall out his own Sun. Both of these Flutter Manes used up their booster energies already, so on this turn, if you go for Icy Wind and then the Sun expires later on, your Chi-Yu is actually going to be faster than Yotam's Flutter Mane because the Sun will go down, the booster energy will not reactivate because it's already been consumed, and then Chi-Yu just has to hit a Heat Wave, or 2 Heat Waves rather, to win the match. Again, it's that keyword, you know, connect, hit, if. But
so ominous.
Right, that Devil Protect there from Geo actually doing a lot more than just kind of scouting, you know, does Yotam's Flutter Mane protect? Because if you let the Sun go down and you manage to get an Icy Wind off, which I think the Yotam kind of has to let happen if you want to Moonblast this Ogre Pawn, then Chi-Yu can win the game on its own.
Third time Flutter Mane for Yotam faster, so sure enough, Moonblast, Ogre Pawn goes down. Now Geo will get the opportunity, Icy Wind. Are we connecting? We're not,
okay.
But it's going to be okay. You missed the targets, that's totally fine. This Amoonguss is already so slow. The Flutter Mane, that's the one you need to reduce the speed from. Sludge Bomb, some good damage into the Flutter Mane, gets the poison as well. But now with the Ogre Pawn being taken down and the speed being reduced from Yotam, Sun is gone, so the Chi-Yu should have a fun time.
Yeah, Chi-Yu should be the fastest thing on the field here, unless it's trained to be a little bit slower, but it'd have to be pretty slow in order to not outspeed this -1 Flutter Mane. So really well timed from Geo there. I think you can see it on his face there. He knows, all right, gotta hit some Heat Waves here. And
oh no.
Chi-Yu, one of the downfalls of Chi-Yu is that all the attacks you want to use on it, like Overheat, Snarl, Heat Wave, none of those have 100% accuracy, so it can let you down at some inopportune times here. But if Heat Wave double connects, that should be a 1-0 lead for Geo, and if not, Yotam might be taking the lead.
There has been some tragic Heat Wave miss that we've seen on broadcast. It's like a Hall of Fame of Chi-Yu's worst moments, and hopefully Geo is not about to join that list. I remember with Justin Hang, we've seen it. It's just, there is a list, so I'm sitting here, I'm on the edge of my seat, I'm holding my breath, because at the end of it, all you have to do is click the button and hope. Flutter Mane protecting, so opportunity to just hit into that other slot. Just protect on both, okay.
Maybe get some poison damage onto the Flutter Mane, you know, maybe see if Geo tries to make some read that you can maybe take advantage of on the next turn, but I really think if you're Geo here, the smart thing is just to go for these Heat Waves. We are actually seeing the Flutter Mane, oh no, because it's not -1. Right. I was going to say the Flutter Mane on Geo's side is going before Chi-Yu, so maybe I have my numbers wrong, but Yotam's is the only one at -1 speed. So we should see Geo's Flutter Mane acting first, and then Chi-Yu can get its attack off.
Flutter Mane, damage from the poison will be taken down at the end of the turn, so yep, goes back to the same thing that we just set up.
Yep.
Just one turn later. Heat Wave, well,
will it be
everything
enough?
on that, yeah.
Terrestrialization coming through here. It's probably going to be that Amoonguss, actually. Oh, I didn't even see it's Terra Fire. So it's going to be resisting the Moonblast and the Heat Wave. And if it's able to survive these 2 attacks and get a Sludge Bomb into that Chi-Yu, even if Heat Wave double connects, it could still be a win for Yotam.
especially with a decent little amount of health. Moonblast, Fluttermane, Geo going first without that speed drop into the Mungus. That's a decent amount of damage. It's just whether it's enough. Heat Wave, that double connect and double KO. With that, Geo up 1 in the set, 1 game away from securing a spot in our top cut.
Really tense ending there. Of course, you don't really want to be relying on Heat Wave connecting twice to close out a game, but I think Geo played that really, really well. The timing of those icy winds, the timing of the sun going down, actually like sacrificing the Koraidon in the way that he did kind of worked out well. The sun lasted as long as he needed it to, and then he kind of used like the sun and lack of sun, you know, swap out the Fluttermane to the Koraidon, get your own Fluttermane back in with the speed advantage, and then the sun going down to make sure that neither have that photosynthesis boost, so Chiyu could close out the game. It was a really masterclass in positioning. I think that's something that's the Geo's experience coming through with this team, right? He knew that, okay, maybe I don't actually need the Koraidon here, I just need the sun for exactly 5 turns and no more.
Hey, I mean, you also make sure the sacrifice isn't in vain, and you get the sun, which was so valuable for the rest of your Pokemon, for the 5 turns and 5 turns only. Beyond that, we don't want to mess with that. And for Yotam, this Calyrex, it was a restrictor that also didn't really get to have too much impact, and it didn't have a lasting one for any of the Pokemon. So even if it stuck around for a turn longer, or like was active a turn before, both kind of did the same thing in terms of the impact, but then Geo's was so much long-lasting with the sun. So really, really big. And I'm curious then how Yotam wants to readjust into this game and how this Calyrex is going to be positioned.
The Terrafire on Amoonguss is something I didn't pick up until that very last turn. That's a really cool tech, and not really a Terra type that we see too often on Amoonguss, but it comes in really handy against some Pokemon like Fluttermane and Chiyu. You have to wonder if Yotam maybe tries to leverage that earlier on in this game, especially because, you know, if the Koraidon is able to start attacking a little bit, the Amoonguss might want to turn into that fire type, resist that Flare Blitz, and maybe start spreading some spores, which Geo doesn't really have a great answer to. Obviously, the Cornerstone Ogerpon, being a grass type with Follow Me, can redirect those spores. If that's not on the field, spores are a pretty big threat for Geo here.
There just wasn't really the opportunity in that first game to quite go for it, which is kind of one of those things to look at in this next match as well. So I'm kind of curious if it'll be repositioned a little bit more, or if you are one of the slower things, then, well, the Rage Powder doesn't matter if it's a Icy Wind that goes into both, etc. It doesn't matter if you're going up against a Chiyu that's clicking Heat Wave. If that's going to be a Pokemon difference that we maybe see changed a little bit. And another I'm eyeing up, whether we see it or not, is the Urshifu Rapid Strike, because, again, it did one thing and then
it broke the sturdy at least, which could have been helpful later on. But you know, the Urshifu Rapid Strike into a sun team when you don't have a way to cancel the sun can be a little bit difficult to use, but it's going to be immediately back on the field for Yotam in this lead slot. We have the Fluttermanes seeing their photosynthesis boost with that booster energy. Again, the Fluttermane on Yotam's side activating first. At this point, unless we've seen, you know, 4 or 5 different coin flips go Yotam's way, might be safe to assume that his Fluttermane is just a little bit faster.
We're just really waiting until it is the most dramatic possible moment to reveal. Just kidding, it was speed. Now at this point, it seems pretty right. But Urshifu in the lead, of course, at this date and time, there is no sun yet, so it can go for some meaningful damage. But if there is the swap in, then that's something that you can really negate it.
Yeah, it is rough. There's no sun yet, but the Fluttermane on Geo's side actually has the move Sunny Day. So if you want to set up the sun and maybe mitigate some of that damage, you can. Not sure if that's the greatest use of your time right off the bat, especially when you have the possibility of going for something like an Icy Wind to break a Focus Sash or lower some speeds. Overheat, also an immediate threat. In the sun, probably one-hit KOs Fluttermane and does just about that to Urshifu, even if it's resisted.
If it connects.
Yes, yeah. We just want something to miss at this point, huh?
No, I'm just making sure we all understand the stakes of this Chiyu. Koraidon swapping in, that brings the sun. Urshifu protecting on this turn instead, so you're not going to be wasting kind of a water move. Icy Wind into these Pokemon. Koraidon, with that being super effective, is a nice little amount of chip. First Chiyu, no drop from either when considering Clear and Cloak, but this does connect. Fluttermane, which was actually a really key piece for Yotam in that first match, has now been eliminated on that very first turn.
And what a great play for Geo there, knowing that Urshifu probably doesn't want to take a Moonblast, doesn't want to take an Overheat, will be protecting itself just to make sure it sticks around a little bit longer. Swap in that Koraidon to eat the Icy Wind, maybe take a little bit of damage, but at the same time, no speed drops. Like you said, there is a Clear Amulet on Koraidon, the Covert Cloak on Chi-Yu, both of which will block the speed drop aspect of Icy Wind. And now Gio is at a 4-3 Pokemon advantage without taking too much damage. And you've also got this Chi-Yu facing down the Calyrex as well. So a really, really smart play there from Gio, especially now that this Flutter Mane on his side will be the only thing with speed control. And if you're able to get that in unscathed later on in this game, you can start throwing out some Icy Winds, making sure this Koraidon and Chi-Yu can be the fastest things attacking.
And we got a Koraidon that stuck around for more than one turn in the match. Let's go, Koraidon! But now we're eyeing up the restricted from Yotam coming in. So this Calyrex, how is it faring against, well, what Gio has, which is this Koraidon that is made it past one turn, and a Chi-Yu that now has his -2 special attack.
Koraidon will protect itself, doesn't want to be taking an Astral Barrage or a Psychic from this Calyrex just yet. Aqua Jet comes through though with some, because Unseen Fist, right? I guess that makes sense. You want to make sure Astral Barrage KOs it, and you get a little bit of chip there before it takes a possible collision course or overheat. But Astral Barrage only hitting this Chi-Yu, thanks to that Dark typing doing really no damage. And Life Orb will do a little bit of chip, and Heat Wave will connect. Break the Focus Sash on Urshifu, and still do a big chunk to Calyrex as well.
It's a burn, so that's going to be some damage over time onto that Calyrex. So even if you're at that -2 special attack, still trying to get any sort of meaningful damage out. I mean, the Urshifu also with that, as much as you can, respectable, but really just showcasing, like, you hit into the not very effective, also just the Sun really kind of limiting what you can do.
Especially with the burn and the Life Orb from this Calyrex, you're going to be taking a lot of chip damage every turn when you're attacking. So if Gio's able to kind of weather the storm of this Calyrex, he'll put himself at a pretty big advantage, especially now that this Urshifu's Focus Sash has been broken. That's a pretty easy Moonblast KO later on in the game. It is a Stellar Terra Urshifu, which is nice for boosting both Surging Strikes and Close Combat, but unfortunately it does not help you at all defensively. So if Flutter Mane comes back in, that is a pretty easy KO with a Moonblast.
Eyeing up this Calyrex, you want to make sure that this stays within reasonable limit. Was eyeing up the double protect, not going for it. Aqua Jet, a decent amount more into the Chi-Yu, but with this Astral Barrage again that restricted, okay, it actually will be enough for Chi-Yu. Koraidon goes down yet again, and that's going to be a double KO. You at least got the Flutter Mane down and that 4th Pokemon, so there's still definitely advantage you can have here, but yeah, 2 KOs on 1 turn.
It is kind of rough. The critical hit on Koraidon there, hard to know if that really made a difference, but Chi-Yu just barely being knocked out. I thought based on the last damage, it might have had a shot at surviving that, even after the Aqua Jet. However, Gio does still have his Flutter Mane and Ogerpon left. We have seen the Ogerpon, obviously be able to knock out this Urshifu with a Power Whip. If the Flutter Mane is able to get an Icy Wind off here, I bet the Ogerpon is also able to KO it with something like the Ivy Cudgel. But maybe you just go straight for the Moonblast? Like, just Moonblast, knock out Calyrex from here, and then you can let Ogerpon deal with the Urshifu, and then whatever final Pokemon Yotam has can't really deal with both this Flutter Mane and Ogerpon. Even though Gio's down to a 2-3 Pokemon disadvantage there, I think he's still in a pretty strong spot, especially considering, like you can see, the Terrestrialization still an option. Terra Fairy Moonblast, I think, should be more than enough to KO this Calyrex, and then, again, you just got a Power Whip to hit, and then you're in a really strong spot.
I'm not a fan of these ifs.
I know.
Time after time. So Calyrex with the KOs, it is something that is going to be outputting a little bit more damage. So something that you do have to be respecting in this case. Even if your Pokemon are at this full health, Ogerpon will have the sturdy for at least that 1 round of damage. But Terrestrialization, we saw the hover, we saw the input. So now we'll get to see the Flutter Mane with a nice little heart above its head, going into the Fairy type, and notably as well, dropping that weakness to the Ghost type attack that can come out from this Calyrex. There's the speed boost as well going in. Calyrex is going to protect on the turn though, so it's just eyeing up to be potentially this Urshifu. Nope, double protect from Yotam.
You will take that if you're Gio. One of the things that could have gone wrong on this turn is that you target the wrong slot as it protects, and then one of your Pokemon takes close combat, a Surging Strikes, an Astral Barrage. And now that you know, okay, both of these Pokemon have protected themselves, and especially now that this Calyrex takes 1 more tick of burn damage, I think it's pretty safe to assume Moonblast will KO this Calyrex, which would allow Ogerpon to just deal with this Urshifu, provided Power Whip connects once again. But of course, Yotam still does have a 4th Pokemon. If it is not a Moongus, there's still the potential for something like a Rage Powder to come in and ruin some plans. This Calyrex, again, its time is limited because of this burn and because of the Life Orb, but being at +2 from that Astral Barrage double KO, I think if it's able to get 1 Astral Barrage off, the game just immediately ends. So you really got to make sure You don't let that happen if you're Geo. That was a really risky play doubling into that Urshifu in the last turn, but I think it's a read you are kind of safe to make because this Calyrex was very heavily threatened and Yotam just can't really let it go down.
Yeah, now that you know that there's the Protect from both of these Pokemon, to then switch around the targeting just a little bit, be smart. But Calyrex is swapping out, so you do lose the boost, but you have that Pokemon for a later time, maybe more when that sun is down, and maybe speed a little more in your favor. Aqua Jet, Ogerpon, Sturdy is broken as Moonblast, Terra Fairy, Flutter Mane into the Amoonguss Swampin' though. Not really going to be that much damage. Power Whip, connect it will. So Urshifu goes down, both trainers at 2 Pokemon apiece.
Well, now that's another really great play from Yotam because you really needed the Sturdy broken there on the Ogerpon. Sunlight does go down and photosynthesis wears off, so we're in another position where this Flutter Mane no longer has a speed boost. And swapping out the +2 special attack Calyrex might not feel great because of course you want to keep those special attack boosts. But at this point you kind of needed to swap it out because it would have been knocked out otherwise. And now that Flutter Mane doesn't have the speed boost, Calyrex should be the fastest thing on the field once again. And it's just going to be a matter of whether or not this Calyrex can take a knockout on this Ogerpon without it getting an attack off first. Because if Ogerpon's able to survive an Astral Barrage and Ivy Cudgel the Calyrex, I don't know if there's a way that Yotam has a way to win this game anymore because you just lose so much of your offense.
I'd be curious, even if there's, you know that the Amoonguss isn't taking too much damage, you try and go for potential of a Protect here to then do what damage you can with this Amoonguss to try and make sure that maybe the Astral Barrage the next turn is the KO to maybe not allow this Ogerpon to attack?
True, that might be a really smart play. Of course, you can also Icy Wind with this Flutter Mane, which will do a little bit of chip damage to both of these Pokemon, and more importantly, kind of limit the time the Calyrex has left on the field anyway with that burn and the Life Orb. Icy Wind will come through here and, of course, not hit the protecting Calyrex, but do some chip damage to the Amoonguss, and Ivy Cudgel, I believe we saw target this Amoonguss.
If targeting the Amoonguss instead and getting the KO there, that is humongous. So not falling for the Protect into Amoonguss, not enough for the KO. Not hitting into the Ogerpon though, instead Spore into the Flutter Mane. So sure, you're at a full health, but you're not going to be able to act on this next turn anyways.
You're not, and now I think the only question is, does this Ogerpon survive an Astral Barrage? And if it does, is it able to, get this Calyrex to kind of knock itself out with the Life Orb and the burn? I almost think you have to target this Amoonguss again with Ivy Cudgel, because if Calyrex takes one more Life Orb chip and one more burn chip, I think it might be in range for one more round of burn on the following turn, where you can just Spiky Shield and kind of let it knock itself out here. But if you don't target this Amoonguss, it might be able to finish off this Ogerpon with a Sludge Bomb if Astral Barrage doesn't. But even Astral Barrage also might just one-hit KO this Ogerpon too. It's tough to know how these trainers have trained these Pokemon. So if this Ogerpon's able to survive, that is Geo's way to win this game and lock up a spot in top cut. But Yotam really needs this Astral Barrage to knock it out.
All right, well, if Ogerpon lives, Geo has a chance at 1 HP. Ogerpon hangs on through the turn. That is absolutely massive going on forward. Flutter Mane, that is it's the sleep. But now you get the opportunity to attack. Calyrex was already so low, and he's gonna fall on the turn. It's only Amoonguss left for Yotam against a full HP Flutter Mane, and that is now KO'd. So now this Ogerpon can just finish up the next turn. That is the entire game on 1 HP.
What a game. That Ogerpon is very, very well trained. Geo has fought many, many battles with it and knows exactly how to stick around here. It's really cool to see this interaction too, especially because Ivy Cudgel, it is a physical move, and Amoonguss is holding a Rocky Helmet that actually is non-contact, so it's not taking that chip damage. If we did see Rocky Helmet come into play here, this Ogerpon would have been knocked out. Interesting to see him target the Calyrex instead of the Amoonguss, but at this point, I think you just gotta stick to your guns and say, all right, Ivy Cudgel, it's gonna take me to top cut.
That it does. So congratulations to Geo Cischke. That is a massive win now in the top cut here at the Vancouver Regional Championship.